So Warner Brothers is basically made it public that they're going to be purchased, which isn't a shock, but they're kind of making it a formal thing here. You've had Paramount make 3 offers for them to various amounts. Some have speculated $20 a share, $24 a share. Zaslav has said he wants $30 a share, reportedly, which would value Warner Brothers close to 20th Century Fox. I did the math on it with the shares. It would be around $75 billion. So he might be aiming at what Disney paid for Fox that he's wanting Warner Brothers to be purchased at. But all 3 bids have been turned down from Paramount. And now Paramount is being run by the Ellisons, which obviously have a lot of money. But there's a lot of rumor. Now, I don't know if they've made an official word about it, but a lot of speculation out there is that Comcast is going to basically make a move for them, as well as like Netflix is out there. There's been rumors about Apple. Where do you, I guess, who do you think ends up with this? And do you think it makes sense for Comcast to try? And again, talking about before, their debt load and all the things Comcast has going on. Does it make sense for them? And who do you think will actually end up with it?
Well, Comcast and Warner Brothers have been spinning off a lot of their TV stuff, which I found kind of, I don't know, a little coincidental, right? I mean, I don't know. I kind of feel like Comcast and Warner have kind of been talking a little bit like prior to this, and they're kind of like, you know what I'm saying? And it also kind of points in that it does. They're kind of like preemptively spinning stuff off. WB is rejecting all these offers from Paramount. I don't know. I feel like Comcast might be internally the favorite. Now, that doesn't mean that necessarily they're going to get it, but I kind of feel like there's something there with that one. You know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, and it makes me wonder too, is it down to just the money, and I don't know this, does Warner Brothers have any sort of whoever buys them that they feel is a good caretaker for that, that brand going forward? And so there's lots of question marks around Paramount because the Ellisons are running it now and they have a lot of money, but they're unproven whenever it comes to doing anything at this point. They made some splashes, the UFC deal and things like that. And then you have Netflix, which Netflix has said their wording is interesting. They said they're not interested in acquiring in a network, but they did not say they're not interested in the IP catalog, which I kind of feel is a little interesting wording. Would they look at Comcast as like, this is going to be a good home for Warner Brothers? They'll take care of the brand. And if that is the case, would they get would they pay less for that? I don't know where Warner Brothers is on that, but I do think Comcast would be a better home because Comcast is a proven thing and that they can, I think, like you were saying, you potentially could revamp Looney Tunes and some of these other IPs that they have. Plus you throw in the theme park side of things. I do wonder about these studios wanting to sell to Netflix because a lot of them don't like Netflix because of they're kind of disrupting everything. And I'm very curious as to like what their preference is, or are they just after the money?
Well, here's the thing with Netflix. Yeah, it's a big unknown, right? Because it's a streaming service. I mean, are they going to lean into theatrical, right, or not? The smart thing to do if Netflix does acquire WB is to have Warner Brothers be their theatrical arm, basically. You know what I'm saying? That's the smart thing. Now, here's the thing. To be fair to Netflix, Comcast was a cable company. I mean, Comcast was and still is to a large degree, right? So they purchased Universal and did a great job, despite the fact that they were never really in that business in the first place, right? So it's possible that Netflix, even though they're a streaming service, can still do great things for theatrical. I mean, it's not impossible, you know what I'm saying? But there's also a risk, you know what I'm saying? So you never know. Yeah. Comcast, I feel like you were saying, Jared, you're absolutely right. It's much more of a proven thing. They've bought other things before, like DreamWorks and what have you, and they've done very well with it. They've shown respect to the things that they've acquired and their own IPs, right? I feel Warner Brothers would be in really good hands with them. I wouldn't worry at all. Netflix could do great, but we don't know. You know what I'm saying? That's more of an iffy thing. I don't know.
Well, and something to consider too, and I forgot to mention is, Peacock is not the strongest streamer out there. And obviously all these studios are thinking about streaming. If they were to acquire Warner Brothers and get HBO Max, that definitely beefs up their streaming end of things on top of everything else that could benefit them as well. So I do wonder if Comcast is looking at them, how much of this is like theme park, how much of this is movies, how much of this is just IPs, or how much of this is, is like streaming. And maybe it's all kind of an even thing. But I think, money aside, if they can make it work, I think it makes a lot of sense for Comcast. I think it just comes down to, can they make that work and would it get approved? That's also been my other issue, is like, would this merger be approved given Comcast size compared to Paramount?
Well, I look, here's what I think. I think Comcast, in terms of which company is the best fit, I think it's also Comcast Universal. When we're talking about whether a company is just going to be absolved through an acquisition, or whether the company that's doing the acquisition is going to actually build upon the brand and improve on it and take it into new directions, there's no doubt that Universal Comcast is the company that's going to take Warner Brothers up and forward. I really do think that Paramount is going to do nothing but absorb it. I mean, yeah, they have some really good properties like Top Gun, Mission Impossible, Star Trek. You know, they have some really wholesome home what do you call it, household brands. But in terms of Paramount's, in terms of what Paramount has been able to do with their IP lately, they've been so hit and miss. You know, Mission Impossible does great one year, down the next. Star Trek is 50-50. It's divided the fans. SpongeBob isn't as big as it used to be. They have, you know, some distributing rights with Jurassic Park, and I think they have some licensing partnership when it comes to Sony and Columbia when it comes to Ghostbusters. I just don't know if Paramount's going to take Warner Brothers in a direction and give them the royal, I don't think they're going to give the IP the royal treatment that they need to give it. And not just with like DC and Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. I mean, all that's a given. But Warner Brothers has a legendary horror selection. I mean, look up Warner Brothers New Line Cinema horror. You know who's going to benefit from that? Comcast. But the problem is they're $90 billion in debt. How are they going to transition from a telecommunications company to a theme park company if they're, let's say they buy this for $74 billion? How are they going to buy this if they're $200 billion in debt and then invest in the parks?
And I think I looked it up at one point. I think Comcast, they don't have the most debt. They're like top 10 in terms of companies with the amount of debt that they have. Like AT&T has a ton, massive debt load on their company. And granted, in the modern day of businesses, you can carry heavier debt loads and still operate. It just, I just don't think that, I don't know. I personally, I wouldn't want to add on another 70 plus billion in debt, but you know, I'm not also running a major corporation. And not to mention, Warner Brothers is like 30 billion in debt. So you'd have to take on their debt as well.
Right.
I don't know if Comcast would spin stuff off, and how much of the assets, if you buy Warner Brothers, can you sell off in the short term to make up some of that debt? I don't know. Right. But that is the same question I have. I'm like, it sounds great on paper. I think Comcast makes a lot of sense for a lot of reasons. The thing that doesn't make any sense to me, now granted, I'm not an accountant or an economist, but just looking at this from the outside looking in, I'm like, how do you even remotely make that work with the amount of debt that they have? And then, like you were saying, if they did do it, would that affect projects in the theme parks? Because, I mean, one would assume you wouldn't want to do that with all the momentum that you have. And that could go into what you're talking about, too, is like, are they weighing this with like anime? And is it just be like, we would like to have this, but like, we don't want to take on $75 billion of, you know, buying this other company?
And this is my biggest issue with WB right now. And this is kind of why I actually want Comcast to buy them, just because I feel like for 25 years-ish, ever since the AOL merger back in like 2000, the Warner Brothers IP have been really like mismanaged. And to the point where like a lot of these IPs that they have are like completely irrelevant. Like, I don't even know, like, does Gen Z even know like a lot of the Looney Tunes? I don't think so. I mean, they're pretty irrelevant. And I think Comcast could really come in there and kind of build it back up. But see, that's the thing. You would have to, I think, build it back up like through content first,
Yes.
So,
You have to
streaming
make it
shows.
relevant to put it in the
Yeah.
park, essentially.
Yes. So
Yep.
you're talking, it would have to be a long-term thing for the park. Like you would have to do like Looney Tunes shows and movies and really get people interested again. And then from that, you can put it into the park.
Because I think I agree with OG. The issue you would have is you'd have to rehab these IPs, which takes time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then it's a risk because it still could just be the IPs are just, some IPs are just, they just have expiration dates on some level. I think that's the risk that Comcast has if they do want to go after WB, is like some of these properties are not home runs. Just off, you're going to have to do things to them. And is it worth the risk of buying them for what they seem like they want for it?
And what's crazy is, here's what sucks for Comcast. They have the most to lose if they don't buy Warner Brothers. By far. It's not even
They
close.
do. That's, yeah.
Between the licensing and distribution rights for Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, which is rumored to go into the new Universal Studios park. They're incorporating SpongeBob SquarePants into their new regional park, which is owned by Paramount. The entire horror lineup of Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema, which is arguably the largest in Hollywood. Okay. Whoever buys this company is going to want to renegotiate the licensing and distributing rights for everything. It doesn't matter if Warner Brothers, or it doesn't matter if Universal Studios has a long-standing relationship with Warner Brothers. Everything gets renegotiated. I don't know if they're going to. I mean, like, guys, can they get capital investors to front up the money? Do they want to do that?
That's a thing. Could they? Probably. Do they want to? Is a whole other thing. I don't. That's my biggest thing. There is like, it makes, like you were saying, they have the most to lose. It makes a lot of sense on paper, outside of just the debt load and all that. I guess that's the big. Now, if they're looking at it, one would assume that they think that they can, but I don't think they've made an official offer from what I have heard. Now, here's a question: Disney bought 20th Century Fox, and let's play a hypothetical that Comcast buys Warner Brothers. Which do you think would end up being the better acquisition? Would it have been Disney buying Fox, or do you think it potentially would be Comcast getting Warner Brothers?
I think it'd be Comcast taking Warner Brothers by far, not even close. I think so too. Because the flywheel is, because Comcast's flywheel is already incorporating Warner Brothers IP into it, and has been for over a decade.
Well, and Warner Brothers has stronger IP than Fox.
Yeah.
And especially when you're talking about theme park IP, because like, okay, you have things like Home Alone, but you can't do anything with that. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I mean, Warner Brothers has a bajillion and a half things you can pull from.
I think a Home Alone ride would kill it.
No, I was saying you get a Home Alone again. It's like Macaulay Culkin now at his age. He's like, I'm Home Alone again. He's like all these remakes from like 30 years later, and somehow it works.
No, I mean, yeah, the Comcast Universal purchase of WB would be epic, dude. No pun intended, but it would be absolutely insanely good. It would completely transform that company. Where you want to talk about Disney getting nervous, that's what would make Disney nervous, because that's not just a park. That changes the game going forward. You're not buying the can of the carton of milk. You're buying the whole cow and all that stuff. I mean, we talk a lot about too. Universal's trying to tap into that more of that younger demographic, right? Universal has always been more of an edgier sort of brand when it comes to the theme parks and what have you. Warner Brothers would open the floodgates for the younger demos, between all the Hanna-Barbera stuff with the Scooby-Doo and Dexter's Laboratory and all that stuff, right? I mean, you would have so much to mess with, dude. I'm telling you, it would be amazing. Comcast would need a partner to buy WB. Would they partner with Disney to buy them?
You would probably get a partner that's not in the same space, like an investment firm. Now that I could see.
Well, now could you see like, Comcast and maybe like Apple?
That's what I was going to say. I'd partner with Apple, because Apple can bring the tech to the house, and for them it'd be very easy to integrate. With Warner Brothers, HBO Max, and all the apps.
Apple's interesting. So is Amazon. I just think that I wonder just what the traditional studios look at them as not a place to like put their IPs. I guess that would be the question, but
that's the big problem, because the Writers Guild Association doesn't even like the idea of Paramount buying
I know
Warner Brothers, and they're a studio.
So, yeah.
Do you guys think they're going to want to close the deal by the end of the year? I think they will.
I think so.
I would assume.
Yeah,
I would assume. It's just you have so few suitors. Like I don't really know if it's not Comcast, but it's not Paramount, then it's Netflix or Apple or something like that. Like you really don't have that many, unless there's just unless Elon Musk or somebody like that just says, like, "Yeah, I want it." But outside of that, I don't really know who else would be really even able to do it.
I think the dark horse out of all those companies is going to be Apple, simply because they have so much free cash flow. They could just buy cash, they could buy the debt.
So much cash.
It wouldn't even affect them, and they would grow their library substantially. And I think that the fact that they're a tech company, it would be very easy for them to integrate HBO Max and Warner Brothers and all these IPs and across all their portable devices. And Apple, again, it's a legacy American brand. And so Warner Brothers plus Apple, I think, even though they don't have the same flywheel, or even a compatible flywheel at the moment for a company like Warner Brothers Discovery, I think that Tim Cook can actually resolve that relatively quickly. I think they're the dark horse that could come in and take everything. I think Paramount still could probably happen. My only concern with Paramount is that they would just be absorbing the company. I really don't think that they would do anything meaningful with Warner Brothers.